They crossed their arms and told her there was nothing for her. They said it calmly, not as a threat, not as a fight. They stood in front of her, blocking the way into the living room. Her uncle stood slightly in front of the others, saying nothing. No one raised their voice. No one explained how they reached that decision. They only repeated it. There was nothing for her, nothing to divide, nothing left to talk about. She didn't interrupt. She didn't ask for papers. She had learned that questions changed nothing. Then an old envelope slipped onto the floor. The room went still. No one moved to pick it up. She looked at the envelope, then at their faces. No one wanted to explain why it was there. She bent down before anyone else moved. The envelope felt thin at the edges. Old paper, handled too many times. A faded courthouse stamp was still visible on the corner. The date was more than 10 years old. She didn't open it, not because she was afraid of what was inside, but because she could feel the weight of the silence around it. When she asked where it came from, the answer came too fast. Old paperwork. Nothing important. They didn't meet her eyes when they said it. One of them reached out and took the envelope from her hand. He folded it back into the folder like it didn't belong in the room. If it meant nothing, there was no reason to hide it. Later, when the room was empty, she passed the chair where the folder had been left. She didn't touch the envelope. She didn't open anything. She only took out her phone and captured the courthouse stamp through the thin paper. Just the number. Just the date. It wasn't proof of anything yet, but it was something they couldn't take back. The next morning, she stood at the courthouse counter with the photo open on her screen. The clerk typed the number into the system. There was a file under her grandfather's name, an inventory case, archived. The clerk said it like it was ordinary. For her, it wasn't. It meant there had been something to divide, a formal process, a record that didn't match the story she had been given for years. When she asked to see the file, the clerk paused. Parts of it had been withdrawn years ago. Pages missing, copies taken out. The record showed family authorization. Someone hadn't just stayed silent. Someone had stepped in. At the end of the counter, an older employee overheard the name. He said he remembered a relative coming in, calm, certain, as if everything had already been decided. He couldn't remember what papers were taken, only that it didn't look like a mistake. It looked deliberate. Back at the house, she opened a storage closet that had not been touched in years. A small box sat on the top shelf. Dust settled into the corners. Her grandfather's handwriting was still on the lid. Inside, there were old courthouse receipts, fees paid, dates that matched the stamp on the envelope. They didn't explain everything, but they placed the envelope inside a story that had been kept out of her reach. That evening, she set the photo of the stamp and the receipts on the table. No one raised their voice. No one argued. The room filled with a silence that had weight to it. No one said she was wrong. No one said they had told her the truth. After a long moment, one of them spoke. There had been a will. They said they thought it would cause problems to involve her. They didn't say whose problems. They didn't say what kind. They only said it had felt easier to decide without her. The next day, she returned to the courthouse. The clerk handed her a copy of the will. Her name was there, not as a favor, as a line that had always been meant to exist. The paper didn't change what had already passed, but it gave shape to the silence she had carried for years. When she left the house later that week, the envelope and the copy of the will were folded inside her bag. No one followed her. No one stopped her. One of them took a step toward her bag, then stopped. The distance between them did not look like anger. It looked like space finally being allowed. She didn't seek revenge. She didn't ask for explanations that would only soften what had already been done. She stepped outside with proof of what had been decided about her, long before she was allowed to know. The envelope stayed folded in her bag as the door closed behind her. It carried years of silence in a few thin pages. The truth did not raise its voice. It only stood where it had been kept out of sight. What else was decided about her while she was kept in the dark?